The drill had stopped. That was the first sign that something was wrong. Captain Kim Tae stood at the bridge of the Baekdu, staring at the frozen surface of Europa through the observation window. His mining vessel had been working this sector for 3 months, pulling ice and minerals from Jupiter's moon. It was boring work, safe work, the kind of work that made a man forget he was floating in the emptiness of space. But the drill had stopped, and now his crew was shouting words he did not understand. "Captain, you need to see this," said his second officer. A young woman named Lee Sue. Her voice was shaking. Lee Sue never shook. Tae walked to her station and looked at the screen. The ground-penetrating radar showed something beneath the ice. Something huge. At first, he thought it was a rock formation. Then the computer finished its analysis, and he felt his heart stop. Was a ship. Not a human ship. The shape was wrong. The size was impossible. It stretched for nearly 3 kilometers beneath the frozen surface, buried so deep that no one had ever found it before. The Baekdu's drill had touched its hull by accident, and now the whole crew stood in silence, staring at the image of something that should not exist. "How old?" Tae asked quietly. Lee Sue checked the readings twice before answering. "The ice layers suggest 60,000 years. Maybe more. 60,000 years. Humanity had only discovered faster-than-light travel 40 years ago. They had only made contact with alien species 32 years ago. And here, buried beneath Europa's ice, was a ship older than human civilization itself. Tae made the call to Earth. Within 2 weeks, the small mining operation became the most important site in human history. Scientists arrived by the dozen. Military vessels formed a protective ring around Europa. The United Earth Council held emergency meetings every day, trying to decide what to do with their discovery. Dr. Park Yuna was one of the first scientists to arrive. She was a xenorchaeologist, a person who studied alien artifacts and ruins. She had spent her career looking at broken pieces of technology left behind by other species. But she had never seen anything like this. "It's Ven," she said on her first day, after examining the hull fragments her team had extracted. "There's no doubt. The metal composition, the design patterns, this is a Ven warship." The Ven. Even Yuna felt a chill when she said the name. The Ven had been the most powerful species in galactic history. They had ruled over 1,000 star systems. Their technology was so advanced that even now, 60,000 years after their disappearance, no one could understand how it worked. They had vanished without warning or explanation, leaving behind only ruins and wreckage. And humanity had just found one of their ships, almost complete. The Accord learned about the discovery within days. The Accord was an alliance of 12 spacefaring species who controlled most of the galaxy. They had laws about Ven artifacts. Strict laws. Any Ven technology found by any species had to be surrendered to the Accord for preservation and study. In practice, this meant the artifacts disappeared into Accord vaults, never to be seen again. Ambassador Rouleau of the Meath species arrived on a diplomatic vessel 1 month after the discovery. The Meath were the richest and most politically powerful species in the Accord. They had soft blue skin, large eyes, and a reputation for getting what they wanted through money and pressure. Rouleau met with the Earth delegation in a conference room aboard the orbital station above Europa. His tone was polite, but his message was clear. "The Accord appreciates humanity's cooperation in this matter," he said, folding his long fingers together. "We understand this discovery is exciting for your young species. But the Ven artifacts are dangerous. They must be handled by those with experience. We will send a recovery fleet to collect the wreckage within 1 standard cycle." The Earth representatives nodded and said nothing. But later that night, Dr. Park Yuna requested a private meeting with the Council. "They're afraid," she said, standing before the most powerful leaders on Earth. All of them. The Meath, the Threll, the Pale Ones, every species in the Accord has tried to unlock Ven technology. They've all failed. They've spent 60,000 years failing. And now they're terrified that we might succeed. The council chairman, an old man named Kong, leaned forward. And can we? Succeed, I mean. Yuna was quiet for a moment. I don't know. But I know we'll never find out if we give it away. This ship is mostly intact. The reactor might still be functional. The weapons, the shields, the engines, they're all there, waiting to be understood. This could change everything for humanity. This could make us equal to any species in the galaxy. Or it could start a war, said another council member. Maybe, Yuna admitted. But if we hand it over, we'll always be what we are now. A small young species that follows orders and hopes the bigger powers leave us alone. Is that what we want to be? The debate lasted for 3 days. In the end, the council voted by a narrow margin. They would not surrender the ship. They would move it in secret to a hidden facility on Titan, Saturn's largest moon. They would study it. They would try to unlock its secrets. They would try to do what no species had ever done. Ambassador, Rulo was told that the extraction was taking longer than expected. There were technical difficulties. The ice was harder than anticipated. He accepted the explanation, but his eyes were cold. Do not test the Accord's patience, he said before leaving. There are consequences for those who break our laws. Captain Kim Tae watched the ambassador's ship depart from the Baekdu's bridge. Beside him, Dr. Park Yuna stood with her arms crossed, a small smile on her face. You know this is crazy, right? Tae said, We're lying to the entire galaxy. We're hiding a Ven warship. If they find out, they won't find out, Yuna said. Not until we're ready. Ready for what? She turned to look at him, and her eyes were bright with something he could not name. Hope, maybe. Or madness. Sometimes they look the same. Ready to show them what humans can do. The hidden transfer began 3 weeks later. Piece by piece, carefully and quietly, humanity moved the dead ship to Titan. They buried it beneath the orange clouds, in a facility that did not officially exist. They called the project Lazarus, after the man in old Earth stories, who rose from the dead dot. It was a good name. It was a hopeful name. But hope, as the scientists would soon learn, was not enough. The ship was not just broken. It was a puzzle designed by minds that thought in ways humans could not imagine. And solving it would cost more than anyone expected. Still, they tried. Because that was what humans did. They tried. 3 years passed, and the ship remained dead. Chief Engineer Beak Day stood in the main hangar of the Titan facility, looking up at the massive hull that stretched into the darkness above him. The Ven warship was 3 kilometers long. It was beautiful in a way that made his chest hurt. The curves of its design, the strange symbols carved into its surface, the way light seemed to bend around certain sections, everything about it whispered of power and mystery, and none of it worked. Day had been building things his whole life. He had designed space stations. He had repaired reactors that other engineers said were beyond saving. He had a gift for understanding machines, for seeing how pieces fit together, for finding solutions where others saw only problems. But the Ven ship broke him. Every day it broke him again. Report, he said to his team. His voice tired. Dr. Shinbora stepped forward. She was the lead physicist on the project, a small woman with sharp eyes and a mind that never stopped working. We've made progress on the energy core. I think I understand the activation sequence now. Maybe? The core operates on principles we don't have words for, Bora said. It's not fusion. It's not antimatter. It's something else. The best I can describe it is, The core tears a small hole in reality and drinks the energy that leaks through. But that's not quite right either. Day rubbed his forehead. And the propulsion system? Still nothing. Lieutenant Yoon says he felt something yesterday when he sat in the pilot's chair, but we can't measure it. Lieutenant Yoon Ho was their test pilot. He was a strange choice for the job, young, not particularly educated, with no experience in alien technology. But he had something the scientists did not. He had instinct. When Yoon sat in the Ven pilot's chair, things happened. Small things. Lights flickering. Panels warming. Nothing useful, but something. The ship responds to him, Bora said. We just don't know why. Day nodded slowly. 3 years of work. 4,000 scientists and engineers. The greatest minds on Earth, working in total secrecy, throwing everything they had at this puzzle. And still, the ship would not wake. The deaths were the hardest part. 17 people had died in the first year alone. Accidents with unknown systems. Radiation from components that should not have been radioactive. One researcher, a brilliant young man named Joe, had touched a control panel and simply stopped breathing. His heart kept beating for 3 more days, but his brain was gone. Empty. Some scientists quit. Others went mad, unable to accept that the answers they sought were beyond their understanding. Dr. Park Yuna visited the facility every month, and each time she looked older. The pressure from Earth was enormous. The council wanted results. The public, fed rumors and half-truths, called Project Lazarus a waste of resources. A joke, humanity's greatest failure, but Yuna refused to give up. And because she refused, they all refused. Keep trying, she told Day during one of her visits. That's all we can do. Keep trying. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday, 3 years and 2 months after the project began. Technician O'Meara was working on a damaged section of the hull when she noticed something strange. The metal was healing. Not quickly, it had taken weeks to become visible, but the cracks were closing. The holes were filling. The hull was repairing itself. She ran tests. She tried different minerals, different compounds, different energy sources. And slowly she found the answer. The hull was alive, in a way. Not conscious, but responsive. If you fed it the right materials, it would rebuild itself. It would become whole again. The discovery changed everything. Within months, the hull was restored. The ship gleamed in the hangar lights, beautiful and terrible, and waiting. And with the hull fixed, other systems began to stir. Dr. Shin Bora finally cracked the energy core. The activation sequence was not mechanical or digital. It was musical. A specific pattern of sounds, played at specific frequencies, in a specific order. When she played the sequence on a modified speaker, the core lit up like a star being born. The entire facility shook. Every alarm screamed, but the core was alive. After 60,000 years, it was alive. Lieutenant Yoon Ho made the next discovery. He had been sitting in the pilot's chair every day for 2 years, feeling nothing, hearing nothing. Then one morning, he understood. The navigation system did not respond to commands. It responded to intent. You did not tell the ship where to go. You imagined it. You wanted it. And if your want was strong enough, the ship listened. Yoon closed his eyes. He pictured the stars outside Titan. He pictured the cold darkness of space, the distant light of the sun. The ship moved, only a little, only a few meters. But it moved. The hangar erupted in cheering. Scientists hugged each other. Technicians wept. Beak Day stood in the center of it all, staring at the ship with tears running down his face. 3 years of failure. 3 years of death and doubt and despair. And now, finally, hope. But hope brought danger. The Accord had not forgotten about the missing Ven ship. Their spies were everywhere, and rumors were spreading. Ambassador Rouleau sent a new message to Earth, his tone no longer polite. "We know you have hidden the artifact. We know you are studying it. This is a violation of Accord law. You have one standard cycle to surrender the ship, or we will take action." One standard cycle. Roughly 6 Earth months. The Council met in emergency session. Some wanted to surrender. The Accord had 40 member species and thousands of warships. Earth had a few hundred vessels, most of them old and slow. A war would be suicide, but others refused. They had come too far. They had lost too much. To give up now, when they were so close to success, it was unthinkable. In the end, they voted to continue. They would work faster. They would finish what they started. On Titan, the work became frantic. Scientists slept in shifts of 3 hours. Engineers pushed themselves past exhaustion. Every day brought new discoveries and new dangers. A weapons test killed 4 people when a plasma burst escaped containment. A shield activation melted an entire section of the facility. The ship was waking up, and it was not gentle, but they learned. They adapted. Where Venn technology was too complex, they added human systems. They built bridges between alien and human engineering. The ship became something new, not fully Venn, not fully human, but both. Chief Engineer Beat Day named it Lazarus. "Because it rose from the dead," he said, "and because we had to die a little to bring it back." With 2 weeks left before the deadline, the ship was ready. Not perfect, not completely understood, but ready. Captain Han Jin arrived at the facility on a cold morning. She was a former Earth Navy commander, chosen for her calm under pressure and her ability to make impossible decisions. She walked through the hangar, looking up at the massive vessel that would soon be under her command. "Can it fight?" she asked Day. "We don't know," he admitted. "We've tested the weapons a few times. They work, but we've never used them in combat. Can it fly?" Lieutenant Yoon says yes. The ship trusts him now. It responds to his thoughts almost instantly. Jin nodded slowly. "And the shields?" "We turned them on once. The energy signature was detected as far as Mars. If we activate them again, everyone will know. Then we'll only turn them on when we need them." Jin looked at Day with steady eyes. "Thank you. All of you. Whatever happens next, you did something incredible here." Day shook his head. "We're not done yet. We still don't understand half of what this ship can do. There are systems we haven't even identified. This is just the beginning." Jin smiled, just a little. "Then let's make sure there's a future where we can keep learning." Above them, the ship hummed quietly in the darkness, waiting, ready. The deadline was coming. And with it, the Accord fleet. But for the first time in 3 years. Humanity was not afraid. They were ready to answer. The Accord fleet arrived on the morning of the deadline. 40-7 warships dropped out of faster than light. Travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. They came from 6 different species, each one sending their most powerful vessels. Meath cruisers with sleek silver hulls. Threll battleships covered in weapons. Pale One observation ships that moved like ghosts through the darkness. And dozens more, arranged in perfect formation. A wall of metal and fire, hanging in the void. It was the largest show of force in over a century. A message. A threat. A promise of what would happen if humanity did not obey. On Earth, billions of people watched the news feeds with fear in their hearts. The government had told them nothing about Project Lazarus. They did not know about the ship hidden on Titan. They only knew that something had made the Accord very angry. And now the consequences had arrived. Ambassador Rouleau broadcast his demands across all channels. His soft blue face filled every screen on Earth. "People of Earth," he said, his voice calm and cold. Your leaders have broken the laws that keep our galaxy at peace. They have hidden a dangerous artifact. They have refused to cooperate with the Accord. This is your final chance. Surrender the Ven ship immediately, or we will take it by force. You have 1 hour. In the command center of the Titan facility, Captain Han Jin watched the broadcast in silence. Around her, the bridge crew sat at their stations, their faces pale but determined. Lieutenant Yoon Ho was in the pilot's chair, his hands resting on the strange Ven controls that only he understood. Chief Engineer Beat Day stood near the engineering console, monitoring the ship's systems. Dr. Park Yuno watched from the back of the room, her arms crossed, her eyes fixed on the screen. 1 hour, Jin said quietly. We're ready, they replied. All systems are online. The core is stable. Weapons are charged. Shields are standing by. Jin nodded. She looked at Yoon. Lieutenant, can you do this? Yoon was only 26 years old. He had never been in combat. He had never commanded anything larger than a training shuttle. But when he looked at Jin, his eyes were steady. The ship wants to fly, he said. I can feel it. It's been waiting for this moment for 60,000 years. Jin almost smiled. Then let's not keep it waiting any longer. She pressed the communication button on her console. All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for launch. We're going up. The facility shook as the massive doors in the ceiling began to open. Orange clouds swirled above, the thick atmosphere of Titan blocking the stars beyond. The Lazarus rose slowly from its cradle, its engines humming with power that made the air vibrate. Technicians and scientists watched from safe rooms, tears streaming down their faces. They had worked for years for this moment. They had sacrificed everything. Now, the ship they had rebuilt was going to war. Lazarus broke through the clouds and entered the darkness of space. For a moment, it hung there, a 3-kilometer blade of alien metal and human determination. Then Yoon closed his eyes, pictured the Accord fleet, and the ship leaped forward. The journey took only seconds. Ven propulsion was beyond anything humanity had ever imagined. One moment they were orbiting Titan. The next, they were face to face with 47 warships that the Accord fleet reacted instantly. Weapons locked on. Shields activated. Captains shouted orders in a dozen languages. Ambassador Rulo stared at his sensors with wide eyes, unable to believe what he was seeing. Ven ship, complete, operational. Flying.impossible.Jin opened a communication channel, not just to the fleet, but to everyone. Every ship in the system, every station, every world with a receiver pointed at Seoul. Her voice was calm and clear. This is Captain Han Jin of the Earth vessel Lazarus. We found this ship buried in the ice of Europa. It was dead. We brought it back to life. We're not here to threaten you. We don't want war. But if you fire on us, we will finish it. Silence. The fleet held its position. No one moved. Then a single cruiser, a Meath ship on the outer edge of the formation, broke formation and fired. The captain later claimed it was a warning shot. A mistake. A nervous reflex. But the plasma bolt flew straight and true toward Lazarus.Jin did not flinch. Shields, she said. They activated the shields. The galaxy had forgotten what Ven shields looked like when they came to life. 60,000 years had passed since anyone had seen them work. But in that moment, everyone remembered. The Lazarus lit up like a star. Golden light wrapped around its hull, bright and beautiful and terrifying. The plasma bolt struck the shield and vanished. Not deflected, not absorbed, simply erased, as if it had never existed. And then Lazarus fired back, a single pulse of energy, white and silent, crossed the space between the ships in an instant. It struck the Meath cruiser that had attacked them. The ship shuddered. Its lights flickered. Its engines died, but it did not explode. It was not destroyed. A pulse had disabled it completely, leaving its crew alive but helpless. Jin's voice filled the communication channels again. That ship fired on us. We could have destroyed it. We didn't. Consider that a message. We don't want to hurt anyone, but we will defend ourselves. The Accord fleet did not move. Every captain was calculating the same terrible math. If one pulse could disable a cruiser without damage, what could the Lazarus do if it actually tried to kill them? Ambassador Rouleau's face appeared on screen. His composure finally cracked. This is an act of war. You cannot. We haven't started any war, Jin interrupted. Your ship fired first. We defended ourselves. Under Accord law, that's our right. Or does the law only apply when it benefits you? Rouleau had no answer. The silence stretched on. Finally, a new voice entered the channel. Deep, rough, almost amused. Well, this is interesting. It was Ambassador Corys of the Threll. The Threll were warriors. They had been part of the Accord for centuries, but they had never been happy about Meath dominance. They respected strength, and they had just witnessed the greatest display of strength in galactic history. Captain Han Jin, Corys said, my people have a tradition. When a warrior shows courage, we honor them. You have shown courage today. The Threll will not fire on your ship. Rouleau spluttered in protest, but Corys ignored him. Other voices joined the channel. The pale ones declared themselves neutral observers. A smaller species called the Ven suggested negotiation. Cracks were forming in the Accord's unity dot. In the end, the fleet withdrew. Not because they were defeated. 47 ships could have eventually overwhelmed even the Lazarus, but because the cost was too high, because the political situation was too unstable, because humanity had proven something that could not be ignored. They had done the impossible. As the last Accord ship disappeared into faster-than-light travel. Jin leaned back in her chair and let out a breath she had been holding for what felt like hours. We did it, Yun said softly, his voice full of wonder. We actually did it. Day was shaking his head, laughing and crying at the same time. I can't believe it worked. I can't believe any of this worked. Only Yuna was quiet. She stood at the back of the bridge, looking out at the empty space where the fleet had been. Her face was thoughtful. Worried. Jin noticed. Dr. Park, we won. Why don't you look happy? Yuna met her eyes. We didn't win. We survived. There's a difference. The Accord isn't going to forget this. They're scared now, and scared powers do dangerous things. This isn't the end of our problems, Captain. It's the beginning. Jin considered this. Then she nodded slowly. Then we'd better get ready for what comes next. Outside the viewport, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere out there, a galaxy was watching, waiting, wondering what the strange little species from Earth would do next. On the bridge of the Lazarus, humanity wondered the same thing. But for now, for this one moment, they had done something no one thought possible. They had risen, and they would not fall again. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Within hours of the standoff, every species in the Accord knew what had happened. A young species from a small blue planet had rebuilt a Ven warship. They had faced down the largest fleet in a century. They had disabled a Meath cruiser with a single shot and then let its crew live. The galaxy had not seen anything like it in 60,000 years. On the Meath homeworld, the Council of Merchants met in emergency session. Their blue-skinned leaders sat around a circular table, their large eyes filled with fear and anger. For centuries, the Meath had controlled the Accord through money and political influence. They had made themselves necessary to every other species. They had built an empire without ever firing a shot. Now, everything was changing. They must be punished, said High Merchant Polo, slamming his thin hand on the table. Sanctions. Trade restrictions. Complete isolation. We will cut them off from galactic commerce until they surrender that ship. And if they don't surrender? Asked another council member quietly. What then? Do we send another fleet? The last one returned with its tail between its legs. We outnumber them 1,000 to 1. Numbers mean nothing against Ven technology. You saw the recordings. Their shields erased our weapons. Their single pulse disabled a cruiser. If we push them too hard, they might decide to stop being polite. The argument continued for hours. In the end, Amith agreed on a policy of economic pressure. They would hurt humanity's trade. They would make life difficult. But they would not start a war they might not win. The Thrall had a very different reaction. On their warrior world, the footage of the standoff was played in every arena and training hall. Young Thrall watched Captain Han Jin's calm face as she spoke to the fleet. They saw Lieutenant Yuno guide the impossible ship through space. They heard Jin's words, "We don't want war, but if you fire on us, we will finish it." Ambassador Cories stood before the Thrall War Council. His scarred face twisted into a rare smile. "These humans," he said, "are the most interesting thing to happen to this galaxy in 1,000 years. They found a dead god and taught it to breathe again. They stood against an empire with a single ship and did not blink. This is a species worthy of respect. You suggest an alliance?" asked the war leader, an ancient Thrall whose scales had turned white with age. "I suggest we stop pretending the Meath are our friends. They have kept us leashed for too long, using their money to control our fleets. The humans owe them nothing. They owe us nothing. Perhaps it is time to build new friendships." The War Council debated through the night. When dawn came, they had reached a decision. The Thrall would reach out to Earth. They would offer trade, military cooperation, a seat at the Thrall table. If humanity wanted one dot, it was the first crack in the Accord's unity. The Pale Ones, oldest of all the spacefaring species, had their own response. They were watchers, historians. They recorded everything that happened in the galaxy and kept their records in vast libraries that floated between stars. They rarely interfered in the affairs of younger species. But the Lazarus incident was different. Elder Solon, speaker for the Pale Ones, requested permission to visit the human ship. Her message was simple. "We wish to see what you have done." To understand. To record. Captain Han Jin was suspicious. Dr. Park Yuna argued for allowing the visit. "The Pale Ones are neutral," she said. "They've been neutral since before the Ven existed. If they support us, or even just acknowledge what we've accomplished, it will matter. Other species will listen." Jin agreed reluctantly. 3 days later, Elder Solon's ship docked with the Lazarus. Solon was strange, even by alien standards. Her species had no fixed form. She appeared as a column of pale light, shifting and changing, occasionally forming something like a face. She moved through the ship slowly, examining every corridor, every system, every modification the humans had made. She did not speak for 3 days. When she finally addressed the crew, her voice came from everywhere at once, soft and ancient and sad. "We knew the Ven," she said. "Long ago, before their silence, we spoke with them. They were brilliant and terrible. They created wonders that no species since has matched. When they vanished, we thought their works would vanish with them. We thought the galaxy had lost something that could never be recovered." She paused, her form flickering. "We were wrong. You have not merely repaired this ship. You have understood it. In some places, you have improved it. You have merged your technology with theirs in ways that should not be possible. You have done in 3 years what no species has done in 60,000. Chief Engineer Beat A stood nearby, listening with his heart pounding. We had to, he said. Some systems were too damaged to repair. We built bridges. Human solutions to fill the gaps. Yes, Solon agreed. And that is what makes this remarkable. You did not try to become the Ven. You did not try to copy them exactly. You took what was broken and made something new. Something that is both them and you. Something that has never existed before. She turned to face Captain Jin directly, her pale light focusing into something almost like eyes. The Meath fear you. They are right to fear. But they fear the wrong thing. They fear your weapons, your shields, your power. They do not understand that these things are not what makes you dangerous. Then what does? Jin asked. Your stubbornness, Solon said. Your refusal to accept limits. Every other species that found Ven artifacts tried to unlock them like puzzles. They assumed there was a correct answer, a proper way. When they failed, they stopped trying. But you looked at the impossible and said, if we cannot do it the right way, we will find another way. That is terrifying. That is beautiful. That is something the galaxy has not seen since the Ven themselves walked among the stars. She drifted back toward the docking port, her light growing dimmer. We will record what you have done here. We will tell the truth of it, not the V. Urgin the Meath will spread, full of lies and fear. The real truth, that a small species, young and foolish and brave, looked at the death of gods and refused to be impressed. Solon's report spread through the galaxy within days. It was measured and neutral, as Pale One reports always were. But its implications were clear. Humanity had done something extraordinary, something that changed the balance of power. On Earth, the reaction was mixed. Some people celebrated. They waved flags and sang songs about human ingenuity. They called the Lazarus crew heroes. Others were afraid. They saw the Meath sanctions beginning to bite. They worried about what would happen next. They whispered that the Council had led them into a trap. Dr. Park Yuna gave interviews, trying to explain what the project had meant, what it had cost, how many people had died to make this moment possible. She showed pictures of the scientists and engineers who had given everything. She told stories of the failures and the breakthroughs, but she also issued a warning. We've proven ourselves, she said, but that doesn't mean we're safe. The galaxy is watching us now. Everything we do matters. Every choice we make will be remembered. We can be an example of what's possible when people refuse to give up. Or we can become just another arrogant species that got too powerful too fast and burned out. It's up to us to decide which story we want to tell. Director Quan Sung, head of Earth's intelligence service, watched her interview with a frown. He was not a man who celebrated easily. He saw threats everywhere, and he was rarely wrong. She's right, he told the Council in their next secret session. We've shown them what we can do. Now they'll never stop watching us. Every ally we make will have an enemy. Every trade deal will have a cost. We've stepped onto the galactic stage, and there's no stepping off. The Council chairman nodded slowly. And we need to make sure our next steps are careful ones. What do you suggest? Sung considered for a moment. The accord is fractured. The Thrall are reaching out. The Pale Ones are neutral, but sympathetic. Several smaller species are curious. We need to build relationships. We need friends. And we need to do it before the Meath figure out how to unite everyone against us. That sounds like politics, said another Council member. It is politics, Sung agreed. The most dangerous kind. Galactic politics. And we're just beginners. He looked out the window at the stars. But we learn fast. That's what everyone keeps saying, isn't it? Let's prove them right. Far away, on the Lazarus, Captain Han Jin stood alone in the observation deck. The ship hummed around her, alive and waiting. Through the viewport, she could see Earth small and blue and fragile. They had changed everything. For better or worse, nothing would ever be the same dot. She just hoped they were ready for what came next. 6 months after the standoff, humanity received an invitation. The Accord was holding an emergency summit on Helix Prime, a massive space station that served as neutral ground for galactic negotiations. For the first time in history, Earth was asked to send a delegation, not as observers sitting in the back of the room, not as petitioners begging for scraps. As full participants with a voice and a vote. It was everything they had fought for. And it was also a trap. Ambassador Choi Nari understood this as soon as she read the invitation. She was Earth's most experienced diplomat, a woman known for her sharp mind and sharper tongue. She had spent 20 years negotiating with alien species, learning their customs, understanding their fears. She knew that the Accord was not inviting humanity out of respect. They were inviting humanity to be watched, judged, tested. They want to see if we'll make a mistake. She told Captain Han Jin during their journey to Helix Prime. The Lazarus carried the Earth delegation, a deliberate choice that sent its own message. They want to catch us being arrogant or aggressive. They want an excuse to unite against us. Jin nodded slowly. So we don't give them one. Exactly. We stay calm. We stay humble. We show them that we're not a threat. We're just different. Dr. Park Yuna sat nearby, reviewing data on her tablet. She would be part of the delegation too, representing the scientific community that had made the Lazarus possible. Humble might be hard, she admitted. We did something nobody else could do. It's difficult to be humble about that. We have to try, Nari said firmly. Pride is a luxury we can't afford right now. Helix Prime was beautiful in a cold, intimidating way. It was shaped like a double spiral, 2 strands of metal and glass twisting around each other for hundreds of kilometers. Ships from dozens of species docked at its ports. Lights glittered like stars along its length. The Earth delegation walked through corridors filled with aliens of every shape and size. Some watched them with curiosity, others with hostility, a few with something that might have been admiration. The main council chamber was a vast circular room with seats arranged in tiers, rising toward a domed ceiling that displayed a live image of the galaxy. Representatives from all 12 Accord species were present, their translators humming softly as conversations filled the air. When the humans entered, the room fell silent. Ambassador Rulo of the Meath rose from his seat at the center of the chamber. His face was carefully neutral, but his eyes burned with resentment. "Welcome to Helix Prime," he said, his voice cool. "We are pleased that Earth has accepted our invitation. There are many matters to discuss." The first matter, of course, was the Lazarus. Rulo laid out the Meath position with careful words. The ship was dangerous. Its technology was unstable. It belonged to everyone, not just humanity. For the safety of the galaxy, it must be decommissioned and its secrets shared with the Accord. Nari listened patiently. When Rulo finished, she stood. "I thank Ambassador Rulo for his concern," she said, her voice steady. "The Meath have always been careful about safety. It's one of their finest qualities." A few delegates shifted in their seats, uncertain whether this was a compliment or an insult. "However," Nari continued, "I must respectfully disagree with his conclusions. The Lazarus is not unstable. It is not dangerous. It is a tool like any other. A hammer can build a house or break a skull. The difference is who holds it, and who holds it now." Rulo interrupted. "A species barely 40 years into space travel. A species that lied to this council and hid an artifact that belongs to all of us. The artifact belonged to no one, Nari replied calmly. It was dead, frozen in ice. Every species in this room had 60,000 years to find it, to repair it, to bring it back to life. None of you did. We did. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Ambassador Corys of the Thrall was smiling openly. The Pale One Elder Solon watched with unreadable interest. Rulo's composure cracked slightly. You violated Accord law. Did we? The law says Ven artifacts must be surrendered for preservation. But what we found wasn't a Ven artifact anymore. It was a wreck. Scrap metal. Nothing worth preserving. Nari paused for effect. What we have now is something new. Something we built with our own hands and our own minds. It's not Ven technology. It's human technology with Ven roots. The law doesn't cover that. That is a ridiculous interpretation. Perhaps. But it's the interpretation we're offering. And it comes with an offer of its own. The chamber fell silent again. Even Rulo stopped speaking, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. Nari looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every delegate in turn. We are not here to threaten you. We are not here to demand power or territory or wealth. We are here because we want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. The Accord has kept peace in this galaxy for thousands of years. That's an achievement worth protecting. She took a breath. But let's be honest with each other. The Accord has also been stagnant. The same species have held power for centuries. The same ideas have dominated for generations. When the Ven vanished, you all decided that their technology was too dangerous to study. You locked it away and pretended it didn't exist. You chose safety over progress. Safety is important, Rulo protested. Yes, but so is growth. So is learning. So is trying new things, even when they're difficult. That's what humans do. We take what's broken and make it whole. We look at the impossible and say, let's try anyway. We fail constantly, but we never stop failing forward. She gestured toward Jin and Yuna, who stood behind her. Captain. Han Jin led a crew that faced 47 warships and didn't fire first. Dr. Park. Yuna led a team that worked for 3 years on a puzzle that killed 17 people before they solved it. They didn't do it for power. They did it because they believe that knowledge should be shared, that progress should be made, that the future should be better than the past. Nari's voice grew stronger. 60,000 years ago, the Ven vanished. In all that time, not one of your civilizations could unlock their secrets. You built laws to hide your failure. You called it preservation, but it was fear. She paused, letting the words sink in. We found a dead ship in the ice. We didn't fear it. We fixed it. That's what humans do. We take what's broken and make it whole. We're not here to threaten you. We're here to offer something your Accord has lacked. New ideas. New perspectives. A species that looks at the impossible and says, let's try anyway. The chamber was utterly silent. Then Ambassador Corys began to clap. Slowly at first, T. Hen faster. A few other delegates joined in. Not everyone, the Meath sat in stony silence, and several other species looked uncertain, but enough to matter. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Rulo pushed for restrictions. Corys pushed for acceptance. The Pale One said little, but watched everything. Smaller species took sides or stayed neutral, calculating their own interests. In the end, a compromise emerged. Humanity would be granted provisional membership in the Accord. They would have a seat on the Council, with voting rights on most matters. In exchange, Earth would share certain non-critical findings from the Lazarus Project and allow limited oversight of future development. It was not everything humanity wanted. It was not everything the Meath wanted, Either dot, it was a beginning dot, as the delegation prepared to leave Helix Prime. Elder Solon approached Ambassador Nari. The Pale One's form flickered and shifted, her voice soft. "You spoke well today. The Ven would have appreciated your words." Nari raised an eyebrow. "You knew them personally?" "In a way. I am very old, Ambassador. Old enough to remember the last days before their silence. They were like you in some ways. Curious, stubborn, never satisfied with what they had. What happened to them?" Solon was quiet for a long moment. "They tried to become something more than they were. They reached for a level of power that even their brilliance could not control. And they paid the price." A chill ran down Nari's spine. "Is that a warning?" "It is a story. What you do with it is your choice." Solon's form began to drift away. "Be careful, Ambassador. The galaxy is watching you now. Everything you do will be remembered." On the journey home, the Earth delegation sat in the Lazarus observation deck, watching the stars stream past. The weight of what they had accomplished, and what lay ahead settled over them like a blanket. Dr. Park Una stood at the viewport, lost in thought. Chief Engineer Beat Day joined her after a while. "Think they'll ever trust us?" he asked quietly. She was quiet for a moment, remembering all the years of work, all the deaths, all the sacrifices. Remembering the faces of colleagues who had given everything to bring the ship back to life. Then she smiled, just a little. "No, but they'll respect us." And that's a start. Behind them, the Lazarus hummed softly. Its ancient systems merged with human innovation, a monument to stubborn hope. A warning to a galaxy that had forgotten what it meant to try. Somewhere ahead, new challenges waited. New enemies. New friends. A future that no one could predict. But for now, humanity had done what seemed impossible. They had risen from the ice. They had claimed their place among the stars, and they were just getting started.